The moment a dismissive avoidant walks away from a relationship, they seem to go stone cold and often leave people thinking that they don't even care. But the breakup cycle and the particular patterns a dismissive avoidant endures after a breakup will absolutely shock you. In fact, you may come to see in this video that dismissive avoidants deal with breakups in ways that you never thought possible and are actually experiencing a lot more inner turmoil eventually than you would think. So let's break it down and dive into the dismissive avoidant breakup cycle that might completely shock you. First and foremost, the breakup boomerang effect for a dismissive avoidant is the fact that no matter how long the dismissive avoidant tries to repress their emotions, those emotions will pop back up eventually. Now, I think to a lot of people, this seems really surprising because we often think of the dismissive avoidant being able to essentially endlessly process their emotions and really stuff everything down for long periods of time. Now, there are a couple things I really want to clarify about that because it doesn't mean dismissive avoidants don't feel things. I would say in the very first stage of a relationship. So if you're not already familiar, we tend to go through the dating stage of relationships, then the honeymoon stage, power struggle stage, stability, commitment, and bliss stages. And we talk a lot about this on this channel based on the work of Dr. Susan Johnson. And when it comes to the breakup boomerang effect, we will generally see that dismissive avoidants don't have their emotions come up and hurt them later if they end relationships in the dating stage. So if there's a short-lived relationship, it's a few weeks, it's a couple months, dismissive avoidants can tend to move on quite quickly and sort of release themselves from that situation pretty unscathed. So they may move on, they may bounce back or rebound. However, this is where the boomerang effect really applies. And it's if a dismissive avoidant breaks up with somebody from a relationship in the honeymoon stage, power struggle stage, or any stage going forward. So what we'll generally see here in these cases is if there's a longer standing relationship, dismissive avoidants actually end up getting a lot of their needs met from that relationship and from that person. And while a dismissive avoidant, when they first leave a relationship, can repress their emotions and kind of numb out or distract themselves very effectively in the first few weeks leaving a relationship, essentially what we'll see take place is around the 6-week mark, up to about this 3-month window, dismissive avoidants can only repress their emotions for so long. And what we'll actually see, and I saw this a ton in my client practice, how often dismissive avoidants, especially if they were in a longer term relationship, would feel like, oh, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm all good, everything's fine, the relationship ended, not a big deal, I'm not really feeling much of anything, I'm kind of excited to enjoy my independence and freedom again. And then about 6 weeks after the breakup had happened, or about 2 months after the breakup had happened, somewhere in that 6-week to 3-month window, we would suddenly see the dismissive avoidant come back and be like, I'm really missing this person, I'm really hurting, I'm really not in a great place, I regret some of my decisions. And they wouldn't always go to the point of regret, but they would start questioning things, start questioning if they had operated differently or what had gone on. And I think this is a really important thing to pay attention to because I think we think a lot of the time dismissive avoidants don't feel, but instead it's more like dismissive avoidants. They can absolutely feel, but they are masters of sort of repressing their emotions for certain periods of time. It doesn't mean that around heavy emotional experiences that you can necessarily repress your emotions infinitely. So what we would see for the dismissive avoidant attachment style, especially if they were deriving a lot of security and comfort from the relationship, is that they would spend the first 6 weeks being in a great place, feeling good, not worrying, not second guessing their decision, not really feeling too much. And because they also tend to cope by minimizing their needs for attachment to other people, they would be able to really repress those needs, kind of disconnect from any even like recognition that they could miss the person or that they might be making a mistake. And later on, that boomerang would kind of come back around because they could only repress their emotions for so long. You may think if you're the loved one of a dismissive avoidant and that person ended the relationship with you, oh good, they're regretting the decision. It doesn't mean that because they are second guessing themselves or because they are hurting over the breakup, that they are necessarily willing to be vulnerable to re-engage in an actual relationship. They may instead just do things like reach out kind of indirectly, see if you're sort of still there, kind of assess the territory, but they may still have their fears of getting back together. And so it doesn't mean just because they're questioning things or, maybe actually really feeling a lot of the emotion post breakup, that they're in some kind of ripe stage ready to reinvest fully in a relationship. And so what I've seen the more, sort of as the most often expression of this is that dismissive avoidants leave a relationship, have the boomerang effect happen, start really feeling poorly about it after a few weeks, but still say, I know it wasn't the right relationship. I know I'm just hurting. And so, as a dismissive avoidant or as the loved one of a dismissive avoidant, if the relationship ended, there are a few key steps that you can follow either way to really help yourself take the next steps. I just want to let you know too, we have a course that's a free gift for life. You get to keep it. It's a $250 value and it's called How to Heal from a Breakup. And it literally is available for a very limited time. If you click the link below, you can actually sign up for the 7-day free trial. And even if you never even stick around for the 7-day free trial or stick around after day 7, you still keep that course for life. So it is a gift. It's a free giveaway. I will put a link to it down below. And it's just a great resource to have on hand if you ever go through a breakup or a painful situation in the future. It will take at least 30% of the sting out of the breakup in a shorter period of time and just really help you understand why we grieve breakups and what you can do about it in really fast acting ways to make the situation much easier. Number one is you have to get clear and really assess, are we both ready and willing, whether I'm the DA or the ex of a DA, are we both in a place where we're ready and willing to truly do what it takes to reinvest in igniting this relationship again? I see so many people kind of go back in halfway or half-hearted thinking, oh, maybe something will work out. We'll see what happens. But, relationships are a big commitment and heartbreak is a big commitment. It doesn't feel good to go through heartbreak. It doesn't feel good to be on and off and back and forth. In fact, it can be really disruptive to your life and to the other areas of your life, like your career, your friendships, your family relationships, your hobbies, your finances, right? There can be so many impacts of this. So the first question you have to ask yourself, whether you're the DA or loved one of a DA, is, do we both have the willingness to reinvest in this relationship and create the necessary changes to make it work again? And that has to be a very clear answer because you don't want to be in this gray area for a long period of time. And then the second thing you can do is, if the answer is yes, then you have to have a conversation about what didn't go right the first time, how things can improve the second time around, and what we would do differently. And you have to discuss what you both need in a relationship and what your boundaries are in terms of your non-negotiables and what you're not able to give. And you also have to have a conversation about what your sensitivities were, what your pain points were, because each of you will have unique sensitivities and pain points in the relationship. That may not be something that you share. So for example, let's say the dismissive avoidant may have a sensitivity to criticism, and the fearful avoidant may have a sensitivity to a lack of transparency. But the fearful avoidant may not be as sensitive to criticism, and the dismissive avoidant may not care so much about a lack of transparency. So you have to express your unique sensitivities and pain points so that you have the ability to get that information and learn to properly take one another into consideration in a healthy way. So this is a really important discussion to be having. Then we have to be able to say, okay, if this is a no, if we're not going down that path of getting back together, if this is a no and we're not able to invest, then instead we have to set a boundary that works for us. For some people, that's no contact, so that you can actually take the space to move on. For other people, if you're going to try to have some kind of friendship, there needs to be clear boundaries around that friendship so you have a sense of closure. And then if you find yourself really wanting to do that inner work and healing to move on from a relationship, a really powerful thing to do after that is to get clear about what needs was this person meeting in my life? What was it that I was so attached to about them? Was it the traits that they brought into my life, the needs that they were meeting for me? And I have to be able to start meeting my own needs the way that this person was, or developing new and healthy relationships where people can meet those needs. So if your relationship represented fun, for example. Do you have a good source of fun in your life now? Do you know how to have fun on your own? Do you do hobbies and partake in activities that bring a sense of fun into your life? Or do you have friends or family members that bring that with you? And if the answer is no, or if that's lacking, you're going to keep grieving that old relationship until you go fill that cup back up in your life currently without that old relationship being the source of that. And so the more you can start doing that work, the faster you're going to heal if a relationship wasn't working or wasn't meant to be working. And the faster you're also going to be able to have that sense of closure and truly move on. In summary here, breakup boomerang effect will often be that the DA represses their feelings, but those feelings come back around. If a dismissive avoidant breaks up with somebody or gets broken up with in the dating stage, they usually don't have that boomerang effect really affect them deeply. It tends to be in relationships that have a bit of a longer standing history. And in that case, dismissive avoidants often feel fine at the beginning. And then eventually those repressed emotions come up and they feel quite badly. Actually, to the point where sometimes I see dismissive avoidants have the slowest time and the hardest time actually getting over a breakup long term. And if we are trying to consider reinvesting either as the dismissive avoidant with other attachment styles or as the ex of a dismissive avoidant with the DA, we have to get really clear if we're both ready and willing to do the work. And we have to have clear conversations about all of those things we talked about, what wasn't working, what to do better, the sensitivities, the pain points, the boundaries, the needs. And then if it's not working, we have to instead be able to say, okay, here are the steps I need to take to get that closure to move on. Do I need to be no contact? What were the needs the person was meeting? How can I start filling those back up in my life so I'm healing that void, which is part of what we experience as the grief of a breakup. And as we do this work, we can not only have the closure and the peace of mind if it's not meant to be, but also we have the capacity to really do things differently if we are trying to work things out. That is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying this channel and these videos. And I can't wait to see you in the future videos. Thanks for watching.